Welcome back. In the last lesson, we talked about the big picture of intellectual property. I introduced you to the idea of copyright in the last lesson. In this one, we delve a little bit deeper into what copyright is and how it's going to impact in a really big way on your career in the music industry. So let's get on with it. Intellectual property is an area of law that deals with the ownership and exploitation of intangible rights. So think of it as an umbrella. Under that umbrella, we have patent, design, trademark, and copyright. So copyright is one form of intellectual property. Now, the purpose of copyright law, the reason copyright law was introduced around the world as a part of our society, is that our society understood and believed and had a principle that people should be incentivized to invest their time, their talent, their blood, sweat and tears, maybe even their money, in the creation of new creative content. We call it the cultural content of our society. Somebody writing a book, somebody taking a photograph, somebody making some music. All of those creative activities enhance the value of our society. They contribute to our creative capital. And so we say, well, we need to encourage that. We need creativity, we need originality, and we need innovation. But why would anyone in a very competitive society where we all have to try and make a living, why would people spend their time and effort and energy in creating something new if they didn't have any rights in what it was that they created? There'd be no logical reason why that would happen. So copyright law gives the creator a range of exclusive rights, and that's the key word, that they're exclusive to the person that created the work. And those rights give that person or corporation or whoever is the copyright owner the power to control the use of that work and the right to commercially exploit that work. That's the basis of copyright law philosophically and in practical terms. Now, copyright doesn't protect everything. Copyright protects specific things, and you can usually find them in the Copyright Act of your particular country. It's not hidden, it's not some great mystery. Copyright law protects specific things. Now, I'm taking this exact wording from the Australian Copyright Act, but realistically, just about all of these things are protected in every legal jurisdiction around the world. The wording will not be identical. Obviously, in some cases, it'll simply be in a different language. But the essence of what is protected by copyright is the same. Copyright protects literary works, dramatic works, musical works, and artistic works, including works of craftsmanship. Copyright also protects the expression of works, if you like, the subject matter that is not the underlying work, but an expression of the underlying work. Things such as films, sound recordings, broadcasts, and published editions. Now, we could go into all sorts of discussions about copyright law in relation to literary works and dramatic works and broadcasts, and we will touch on that later on. But the key thing for you as a musician to understand is that copyright protects musical works and it protects sound recordings. And as we'll discover, this is the absolute bedrock basis of both the music publishing and the recording industry. Copyright doesn't protect everything, though. Copyright only protects what I just described. It doesn't protect an idea or a concept. There has to be a work created. So if you think, wow, I've just thought up a new genre of music, I'm going to call it heavy metal, I'm the owner of heavy metal. You're not. You don't own a style. You can't own copyright in the blues or jazz or fingerpicking, no matter how good you are. You know, you can't even, Eddie Van Halen, who used to tap the guitar strings, which was kind of unique when he started doing it, he didn't own copyright in that technique of playing the guitar. So if you're watching Netflix one night and you see a film and you go, oh my God, I actually had this same idea for a film, I'm going to go and sue Netflix because I thought of this idea for a film 10 years ago, you won't succeed. You haven't expressed that idea in a material form. So a concept or an idea or a style or a technique, not protected by copyright. You don't even own copyright in your own face, which is kind of sad news if you've got a really famous face. But no, you don't own copyright in it. Why? Because it's not a literary work, an artistic work, a dramatic work. It's not a sound recording. It's not a broadcast. It's none of the things that are protected by copyright. Now, I'm sure if you were to ask one of the Kardashians, they would probably say that their face is an artistic work. But sadly, no, that's not the case. You don't own copyright in a name or a title. You don't even own copyright in your own name. Why? Because the law has considered that something like a title, a song title or a book title, or even your own name is not a literary work. You know, you might think your parents were incredibly creative when coming up with your name, and your name should be protected by copyright, but it just doesn't work like that. So that's why, for example, you have a song title like the Queen album, A Night at the Opera, and you can also have a Marx Brothers movie also called A Night at the Opera. There is no copyright in titles. There is very, very limited exceptions to that, which are so small that I won't even bother going into it, but essentially there is no copyright in a title. There's no copyright in a phrase or a lyric. For example, Nike does not own copyright in Just Do It. You'll see later on that catchphrases or key lyrics or things like that have the potential to be protected by the law of trademark, but it's not copyright. So be very clear on what copyright actually covers. And this is one of those embarrassing conversations I mentioned earlier in Module 1. This idea that you can embarrass yourself by saying, hey, I want to go and copyright my name. And you go, well, you actually can't do that. I think what you're talking about is trademark or whatever. This is the sort of knowledge that provides you with the ability to have those conversations and make it sound like you know what you're talking about. All right, so what is the legal basis of copyright? Well, in order to get copyright protection, your work must be original and it must be expressed in a material form. Now, the word original doesn't have a quality analysis placed on it. Something can be original and acclaimed as universally terrible. It doesn't have, you don't have to reach a certain level of quality in order to get copyright protection. So if I was to write a song today, I would pretty much guarantee you it would be rubbish. It would be full of bad cliches, you know, ridiculous melody and absolutely nothing appealing about it whatsoever. I would still own copyright in that work, no matter how bad it was. I could scribble an original drawing on a piece of paper now and I would be the copyright owner, provided that my work was original and not a copy of somebody else's work. So it's not a quality control thing. It's just a question of, is your work original? And it then needs to be expressed in a material form. So this is what I mean when I say the copyright does not protect information, ideas, concepts, styles, or methods. It protects the expression of those ideas or whatever it is that we're talking about. So this could be electronically captured. It could be written down on a piece of paper. It could be recorded, whatever format that takes. So in order to receive copyright protection, a work must be original and expressed in a material form. Thank you to the pug mug. All right, so let's just cover a couple of little details here. Yes, copyright protection is automatic upon creation of the work. You don't have to run off to the Copyright Office. And this is something that people get really confused about. They regularly on, online forums about music or whatever, you hear these questions. What do I have to do to get my copyright? Well, the answer is if you've created an original work and put it in material form, you've already got it. You are the copyright owner at that point. You don't need to go to the Copyright Office. In most countries, there isn't a Copyright Office to go to. Certainly in Australia, there's not. In the US, there is a Copyright Office, and you can register your copyright, but that doesn't give you copyright. All that does is you put a flag in the land and say, I believe I'm the copyright owner as at this date. So I could go to the US Copyright Office with Tom Petty's greatest hits and say, I'd like to register copyright in these recordings, please. And you know what? They'd let me. They'd take my money and they'd give me a certificate saying, you lodged this work for copyright in the Copyright Register of the United States government on this date. Does that mean I own it? Of course not. It doesn't mean I own it. It just says that I claim to be the owner of it. And in the case of Tom Petty's sound recordings, there'd be, I don't know, about 50 million people around the world who would be able to testify that, no, Andrew, you are not the copyright owner of this work. You did not create these recordings. They've been around for 30 years and there's lots of people that can prove that. So registering copyright will never give you copyright ownership. Fortunately, if your work is original, you already have copyright ownership. So be clear about the relevance of a copyright register. Other people think, the way you get copyright is putting a copyright notice on your work. Really? Well, if that was the case, any one of you could buy a copy of my book, put a copyright notice on there, say John Smith, 1999 or whenever. Actually, the book's a lot more modern than that. You could put a copyright notice on there. Do you think that suddenly is going to make you the copyright owner of the 168,000 words that make up that book? Trust me, I remember every single one of them. No, of course, putting a copyright notice on something isn't going to make you the copyright owner. If that was the case, people would be running around with Sharpies, putting copyright notices on all sorts of things and claiming ownership. It doesn't give you copyright ownership. So if you have sent off, your songs to a music publisher and you think, oh no, I'm an idiot. I didn't put a copyright notice on it. That means I've lost copyright in my work. You haven't. Provided your songs are original songs, of course you're the copyright owner, whether you put a copyright notice on it or not. So why would people even use a copyright notice? Well, it is what it sounds like. It's a notification. You're putting people on notice that you claim to be the copyright owner. So it's a good idea to assert your copyright ownership, but don't think that it will give you copyright ownership. It simply is your way of asserting, stating, telling people that you are the copyright owner. Now, here's another of the interesting things about copyright that is often misunderstood. Copyright is not forever. Unlike the James Bond film Diamonds Are Forever, copyright is not forever. Copyright exists for 70 years from the death of the creator of the original work. Now, 70 years is just a number. Why is it 70 years? Why is it not 50? Why is it not 20? Well, that's what the law currently has, but as I said, it's just a number. If enough people around the world said, you know what, copyright protection should only last 20 years, or somebody might say copyright protection should last forever. If enough people felt strongly enough about that, that's what would happen. Our lawmakers would change the length of copyright. So as it stands, it's 70 years from the death of the creator. Now, if you have co-creators, a work created as a collaboration between two different two or more different participants, it's 70 years from the death of the last surviving creator. So, as an example, if you think of those wonderful Beatles songs written by Lennon and McCartney, John Lennon's sadly no longer with us, Paul McCartney is allegedly still alive, and as a result, copyright has not begun to expire on those works. Sorry, Paul, you're looking pretty good. But there you go. Copyright has not started to expire yet because Paul McCartney continues to live. Now, this means any work written, if you're watching this course in 2022, any work created after the death of a creator in 1952 is now what's known as in the public domain. And that means all the rights given to the copyright owner have expired. So that explains why, a filmmaker like Baz Luhrmann is able to make a movie out of the Shakespeare story, Romeo and Juliet, or Hamlet, or whatever it might be, without having to pay royalties to William Shakespeare's great-great-great-grandchildren. The work is now public domain. Now, the philosophical idea behind this is that at some point in time, the creative capital of our society should belong to society and not to a particular creator. But we also want to give them some rights for a period of time because that is what incentivizes them to create new and original work. So as I said, it's 70 years now. Doesn't have to be 70 years forever, but that's what the law currently says. All right, so what I'd like to wrap up this little introduction to copyright by saying is this. We talked in lesson 1 of this module about intellectual property. Copyright is but one form of intellectual property. There is copyright in musical compositions and copyright in sound recordings. Once you recognise that, it's pretty obvious why copyright is the legal basis of the recorded music industry as we know it. It always has been the basis of the industry or the business of recorded music, and despite the incredible changes that have happened in technology and society's philosophy about the ownership of rights and all of that, I really don't think that that's going to change in any hurry. The law of copyright's been around for a very long time and has formed the basis of the music industry, and I don't think the music industry is going to be in any hurry to eliminate copyright, nor would any of the other creative industries. So I think once you've got your head around this and understand this, it's knowledge that is going to travel with you for the rest of your careers. So again, if you are not clear on all of this, go back, have another listen to the lecture, but I'd like to think that it's fairly clear to you now that copyright is a vital basis of the music industry, of which you, the artist, is the major creative part. Let's take this discussion in a few different directions in the rest of the modules, in the rest of the lessons in this module. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks very much.